Morning friends, today I introduce Franz Kafka, the famous German writer, widely known for his novella Metamorphosis. Kafka was born in a middle-class German speaking Jewish family in Prague and in the capital kingdom of Bohemia, then of the part of Austria-Hungarian Empire. Today it was the part of the Czechoslovakia. He was a trained lawyer, and after completing the legal education, he was employed himself as a full-time lawyer but could not succeed. Then he shifted to his job to an insurance company and he worked there. And including his father, he wrote hundreds of letters to family and close friends, including his father, whom he had a strained and formal relationship. In his life, he became engaged with several women, but he didn't marry anybody. He died at the age of 40, 1924, by tuberculosis. Metamorphosis. Meta means beyond. Morpho means shape. It is about the changing one's own shape. The bodily shape is called metamorphosis. It is the original German title is Der Verwandlung. It's a novella written by him. It was published in 1915 and one of the Kafka's best novels. He tells the story of a salesman named Gregor Shah, who wakes one morning to find himself inexplicably transformed into a house in sweat, und Gehör and Jeffer, literally monstrous woman, and subsequently struggles to adjust to his new condition. Novel has been discussed among many literary critics and several interpretations of that. So he reflects on his own job as a traveling salesman, cloth merchant, which he characterizes as being full of temporary and constantly changing human relationships, which never come from his heart. He sees his employer as a despot. And his father himself was a despot. And he quickly puts his job off, if you were, not his family, sole breadwinner and working off the bankrupt father's debts. While trying to move, Gregor finds that his office manager, the chief clerk, has shown up to check on him. Indignant about Gregor finds that Gregor's unexcused absence were attempts to communicate with both the manager and his family. By all you can hear is behind the door incomprehensible vocalizations, kinds of sounds coming, strange and weird sounds produced by the insect. Gregor flees, he flees the apartment. He runs away. Gregor's family is horrified and the father arrives him back into the room, injuring him by the side, assuring him when he gets stuck in the doorway. The Gregor's unexpected transformation is it's naturally his family is deprived of the financial stability because he was the breadwinner. They keep Gregor locked inside his room and he begins to accept his new identity as an insect and adapt to his new body. His sister Grete is the only one willing to bring him food and which they find him Gregor only likes if he is rotten. He spends much of his time crawling around on the floor, walls and ceiling. And upon discovering Gregor's new pastime, Grete decides to remove his furniture to give him more space inside the room. She and her mother begin to empty the room of everything except sofa. Gregor hides under whenever he comes in, but he finds their actions deeply distressing. He desperately tries to save his particularly loved portrait on the wall of a woman clad in the frock. His mother loses consciousness at the sight of him, clinging to the image to protect it. When Greta rushes out of the room to get some aromatic spirits, Gregor follows her, and he's slightly wet, slightly hurt when she drops a medicine bottle and it cracks glass into pieces. The father returns home and angrily hurls apple at Gregor, one of which with the most sensitive spots in his back severely insane. Gregor suffers from his injuries for several weeks and takes little food. His father and mother sister all get jobs and increasingly begin to neglect him, and his room begins to be used as a storeroom, rather. For a time, his family lives in a Gregor's door open in the evening so he can listen to them talk to each other. But this happens less frequently once they rent the room in an apartment to the three male tenants. Since the renters were not told about the Gregors, one day the charwoman, who briefly locks the Gregor each day when she arrives and before she leaves, neglects to fully close the door, attacked by the greatest violin playing in the living room. Gregor crawls out and is spotted by the unsuspecting tenants who complain about the apartment's unhygienic conditions and say they are leaving and they don't pay their rent, for which they have already stayed and may take legal action. Great, who has tired of taking care of Gregor, realizes the burden is existence put on each member of the family, tells her parents that they must get rid of it. They all will be ruined, and Gregor, understanding that he is no longer wanted, laboriously makes his way back to his room and dies of starvation before sunrise. His body is discovered by the charwoman, who alerts his family and then disposes of the corpse. The relieved and optimistic father and mother and sister all take the day off work. They ride a trolley out to the countryside to forget the pain and sorrow, and make plans to move to a smaller apartment to save money. During the short trip, Mr. and Mrs. Sanza realize that in spite of hardships that have brought some paleness to her face, Greta has grown up into a pretty and a well-figured lady. They think about finding a husband for her. So in this fantastic story, it is a mixed, it has the elements of realism and fantasy. There are metaphor, shaping the body, and it applies both to Gregor Samsa as well as his sister Greta, who being a girl in the beginning, transforms himself to a beautiful woman. So there are two kinds of transformations. One is from the normal to the ugliness, which is detested and disliked by all, one and all, which causes him the unsteady alienation, frustration, and it leads almost to a suicidal feeling. But the other kind of metamorphosis that happens in Greta is something very pleasing, that a girl becoming a beautiful young woman, changing herself. And that it's not something unfamiliar to us, this kind of a process, because everyone will have a metamorphosis. With us, we don't know where is the one. Once I was a baby, and where is the baby now? So the baby is changing into a small boy, boy is changing into a young man, and in the middle-aged man, and later in these declining years, and becomes an old man. This thing happens with a human being. Even metamorphosis is the process within a human being himself. It's a natural process. It's a very simple but very fantastic story. I think it is a result of his own dream, that must be of his dream, which caused by the suppression and oppression by his tyrannical father, who rather treated him as a creature than a human being. Okay? It's a beautiful, it's a novella. It has become a classic of its own kind. For that is for his large works, he won the Nobel Prize for that. Thank you.